The latest Netflix original series to land on the streamer is All the Light We Cannot See, a brand new series based on the novel of the same name by Anthony Doerr. The series has been directed by Shawn Levy, who many people know from Stranger Things, and has also been written by Stephen Knight, who is, of course, at the helm of the iconic Peaky Blinders series. The new 4-parter lands on Netflix on Thursday, the 2nd of November. So I guess to get started, Abby, should we delve into some of the good points of the series?
Yeah, let's do it. And there were a few good things, a few bad things too, but we'll get onto those in a bit. But I thought the production values were really strong, which perhaps isn't surprising. Netflix has very deep pockets. Their shows do tend to look lavish and luxe. But I did genuinely feel like I've been transported into a war zone. It's World War II. You know, we see the Germans entering France, occupying it, and then we see them at the end when they're on the back foot, when the Americans have entered the war effort. And those scenes when there's planes flying overhead and bombs dropping and rubble, characters trying to survive. I thought those were really, really effective. And I genuinely felt like I was in the midst of a war zone. So that was a huge positive, because had they not gotten that right, it would have just completely fallen flat.
Definitely. I think the cinematography is one of the main things that is a main draw of this series. It's visually stunning. Like you said, it puts you right into the drama. But also one of the other things I really enjoyed about the story and the series as a whole was really the kind of focus on these individual family plot lines and these family developments and arcs that we see throughout the 5 episodes. I think for me in particular, I really loved seeing Marie and her uncle Etienne and their growing relationship. Obviously, they were strangers, and then they met when Marie and her father had to flee Paris and go to Saint-Malo. And I think we meet Etienne at a really dark period in his life. He's kind of spent years and years locked in his own home because he's suffering from severe PTSD after serving in the First World War. And Marie kind of comes in as a shining beacon of light into his life and really helps get him out of the house and get him back working as a main player in the resistance movement that they're both working in. And I feel like that kind of arc also underpins what the series also is meaning and trying to do, which is to show us that there are glimmers of hope in these otherwise quite bleak moments within our lives.
That's a key theme, isn't it? We hear it echoed all the way through. Characters literally say the light, the darkness is spoken a lot. It becomes quite irritating after a while. But the sentiment is there, and that's really nice. Yeah, those scenes when we see him in the trenches when he's serving in the war, Uncle Etienne, they are really well executed. You can almost feel like the shudder through your own body when the bombs are dropping. I thought those were really, really powerful. And when she says, "We're going out,"
I know.
When he finally leaves the house after 20 years and Madame Manek fetches his hat and she can't believe it. I thought that was really, really well done. The character of Werner as well, the young German soldier who is a radio wizard. Anything about radios, he knows how to fix them, what's wrong with them. I thought he was really interesting because it goes to show that not everyone within the Nazi camp, within the German war effort, although he has done terrible things, he's orchestrated the murder of we don't know how many people, but countless people. I thought that was interesting because it goes to show that not everyone on that side of the divide is pro what the Nazis were doing. He didn't condone their actions. He wasn't behind them every step of the way. And I thought that was really powerful to show that within that, the German movement isn't a monolith. Not everyone thinks and moves and breathes the same. And I thought that was quite powerful and interesting.
And I think also his characterization with his sister, Yuta, as well, that was really beautiful when we saw him being packed away from the orphanage and taken out by soldiers. But then also at the end, as you previously mentioned, about him kind of sending one final message to his sister via the means of radio, which is also, again, another underpinning message of the series, which is that radio and family has kind of been these main themes within these 4 episodes. So it's nice that it's explored through the lens of family.
Absolutely.
I think also we can't speak about the series without speaking about how brilliant the lead actresses have been, both Aria Liberti and Nell Sutton, who both play the older and younger versions of Marie. I think both Arya and Nell are relatively new to the world of TV, and you wouldn't think it for a moment.
No,
I think when you're watching it, Nell is absolutely hilarious. As
her comedic delivery is
so
excellent,
good.
Really good.
And I think seeing her on screen with Mark Ruffalo is just a joy. And similarly with Arya playing the older Marie, she is so fiercely determined and independent, which is how we come to understand her as an adult. And I just think, yeah, it's really rare that we see such a major Netflix series putting two newcomers at the helm of a major star-studded cast.
And they're also blind. Both of them are blind in real life, and I don't think you can overstate the importance of that enough. I think had they not made that decision, there would have been a lot of backlash, and rightfully so. That's not to say that an actor who isn't blind couldn't portray that in a realistic, convincing, authentic manner. But I think it matters that disabled actors are given opportunities because it still isn't happening nearly enough. And they both did such a beautiful job with really knotty subject matter. You really feel, particularly older Marie, you feel her fighting spirit that really comes through, grabs you through the screen. And I just thought she did a magnificent job. Really impressed.
And now I guess onto some of the not so great moments within the series. I guess kicking off the kind of one that was glaringly obvious as episode 1 was kind of going was Mark Ruffalo's questionable accent. Bizarre. I think we have to mention it.
With that French lilt.
I don't know what it was. Yeah.
It was bizarre.
It was like a European, what you would imagine a wholly European accent to try to sound like. He was trying to encompass lilts of multiple countries.
It just didn't sound like anything. But then you had Hugh Laurie just speaking as Hugh Laurie. And then you had the woman who played Madame Manette just doing an in-between, a bit of both. That was a really weird decision. And I just wished that they had cast a French actor as Daniel and just had them speak in French and just subtitled the whole thing. What's wrong with subtitles? I just think whenever I watch Netflix shows dubbed, which for my shame I do sometimes, if I'm a little bit tired and I just don't want to read, I do sometimes, but they're not nearly as impactful as when they're spoken in their native tongue. And I think that was just lost here, especially with the bizarre. It was jarring.
It was
really
jarring.
Distracting.
And it took you out of the important storylines you were supposed to be focusing on.
Exactly, because the actor who plays Werner, Lewis Hoffman, who many people will know from Netflix's Dark, that mind-bending series that I just couldn't wrap my head around for most of it. He is German and yet he's speaking in English. So I just thought it underestimates the audience. It suggests that audience members are lazy. Perhaps they don't want subtitles, but actually I think it enhances it so much more when you've just got people speaking in their native language. So I would have rather preferred that than what we got. The dialogue as well. They sounded like greetings cards or inspirational posters to me. I just thought, again, jarring, didn't work. They didn't speak like real flesh and blood people. They spoke like characters that had been lifted from a page. It's fine in a book, but it's not what you want in a TV series.
No, like you do want some of that poeticism to translate, but it did feel like we were kind of getting lost in the metaphorical rather than just seeing it play out. And that is the beauty of something being adapted as a series, is that you're being visually faced with the realities of the book, but we were kind of getting lost in a lot of disappointing dialogue.
And they had that with the radio, the moments where people speak. That was the opportunity to do that and be profound and poetic. But then when the radio switched off and they're, talking to one another, just speak like normal people.
I know,
I was just like, come on. What's wrong with you?
I feel like also another major negative is also the characterization of von Rumpel, the German Nazi soldier who is on the search for this famed Sea of Flames precious stone. And I feel like while that is an integral part of the whole story, I do just feel like the whole series was kind of bogged down by continually going back to his storyline, whereas I felt like it was time that was wasted and we could have spent more time with Marie and with Werner.
Yeah, absolutely. The Sea of Flames strand of this story was like something out of Indiana Jones. It's not what I wanted from this at all. I'll go and watch Indiana Jones if I want that. It was just quite dull and it really sucked the life out of everything. I think they thought that it would really propel the plot and it would be really fascinating. It gives us this mystery, this mythical aspect, magical aspect to it. But I just didn't care. I just found it really, really dull. And I felt like the actor was trying to channel Christoph Waltz in Inglourious Bastards, but he's obviously not as good as Christoph Waltz, and it just wasn't working for me. I found that really tiresome, and it bogged it down, as you say, and it just wasn't that interesting. So a big no from me, that aspect of the story. Was there anything else that you didn't like? I think we spoke about, in relation to the Sea of Flames, Daniel leaving his daughter to go and squirrel it away because he didn't want the Nazis to get his hands on the stones, but surely your daughter means more.
Than
that
the
really
stone.
Confused me.
I also think it was just the way that he had sent off all the precious stones because he didn't want them taken by Nazi soldiers, which is obviously a very real part of history. But I do feel like he could have just put the Sea of Flames in that collection of jewels. But again, another plot point. And I guess also we mentioned the way that it kind of wrapped up.
So yeah, it felt really sudden, the way in which it wrapped up. I thought Netflix had only given us a portion of the episodes, maybe half the series, maybe there was 1 or 2 more to come, but actually it was
4
it was just 4. And I felt that for a series that moved glacially at times, it was incredibly slow, particularly with the evil Gestapo man who wanted the Sea of Flames. I really hate the way Mark Ruffalo says Sea of Flames. Just harrowing. But then it also felt rushed at the end. And I was like, I felt like it needed another episode just to wrap things up more robustly.
I think also because we're seeing Marie go through such monumental loss in that final episode, you kind of do want to stay with her for a bit longer to find out if she's going to be okay, to find out what maybe will become of Werner when he's taken away. But yeah, it's quite sudden. We don't really get that closure at the end.
It's as if they share that kiss, which again, I'm not really sure. I know they have that bond through the radio that links them in a really unusual and profound way, but that didn't work for me. I didn't feel like we'd built enough to that moment. I felt like they would have needed to have spent more time together, which we could have got in an additional episode, but that just felt not earned for me. But you spoke to Sean Levy, didn't you? Director and exec producer. Did he have anything interesting to say?
He mentioned that actually because the novel ends with kind of an epilogue of, you know, a bit more of a harrowing spin on the tale, and we find out what happens to Werner, what happens to his sister Jutta, what happens to Marie. And those are quite harrowing ways to explore those final parts of their characters. But Sean was actually quite open about the fact that even though he really loved the novel, he didn't want to end his series that way. He didn't want to kind of go into gratuitous violence against women, which is kind of what the novel goes into briefly. And he wanted to end the series on a note of hope, which is what has followed throughout the series. And he wanted to make sure that you're kind of left wondering what's going to happen to Werner, what's going to happen to Marie. And it's kind of left like that, not in the hopes that there will be anything extra made, but just that you're kind of left on this note of hope.
Which works. I think that's admirable. I think they were right to steer clear of, we don't need to go into detail here. You can find it on the internet, or if you've read the book. But I think they were right to steer clear of that. It's in keeping with the show's themes, which runs all the way through, of hope, of lightness. And I think they made the right call there.
Definitely.
And I guess that's another positive we can add to the list, the fact that they did change things up a bit. Sometimes people, perhaps with books that are celebrated, this is a Pulitzer-winning book, they have to stick strictly to what's been written, but they deviated from that, which I think takes bravery, actually.
I know, and I guess how often do we get a series that actually ends on a fairly nice and hopeful note?
Absolutely, although I do have loads of questions about what happened next. You know, what happened to all of these characters? Did they rebuild their lives in any way? Were they able to? So many questions.
Is Marie okay?
Is Marie okay?
By herself?
What happened to Werner? Just because we see him dragged away, and again, that was something else. Why didn't he rip off his German uniform, grab a shirt, and just say, I'm with her, and it's fine.
I'm her husband.
That really annoyed me.
That would have been wonderful.
Yeah, because he deserved to have his time to redeem himself.
Yeah, I think
which he would have done.
That would have been nice. I guess we can only hope.
Exactly. We can only hope.
So I guess let us know what you thought of All the Light We Cannot See in the comments of this video. And thanks so much for watching.
Bye.